Today, I'd like to talk about next generation TV audio and where this is going to go. And then at the end, if there's time, about a few products that we're offering that will provide necessary and useful tools to help solve the next generation TV audio workflows. So I want to start with just some information about this. So today, and for the last however many decades, we're used to thinking about dealing with channel-based audio. So this is a very output-centric way of looking at audio. You have a left and a right speaker, or you have a left, center, and right and surround speakers, and everything gets mixed to those speakers when you're doing production work. Going forward, there's a new way of thinking about this, and this is object-based audio. Object-based audio is a little bit different. It's a very much input-centric way of looking at audio, where each sound, each audio element is its own entity, its own object. And with this object, it comes, it has a set of metadata attached. And we're all familiar with metadata and how it's been used and abused and misused, and many of us hate it and dread it and don't get it set right. But metadata is here to stay, and it's actually going to become far more important. But it's also going to get easier to use and to set correctly. Each audio element, as I said, has metadata associated with it. And this metadata can be positional information, it can be level for playback, it can be changing frequency response, the size of the object, whether it's a small pinpoint object or whether it's a large sound that would occupy an entire wall of the theater. Movement is also another type of metadata that can be applied with object-based audio. So two ways of looking of working with audio: channel-based and object-based. So newer workflows, we're going to be able to deal with both of these, sometimes independently and sometimes blended together. The next thing that I wanted to go over is Dolby Atmos. Dolby Atmos is a brand name for Dolby's version of immersive or 3D sound. They define Dolby Atmos as an experience, not a specific technology. There's many different ways to deliver 3D or immersive or Dolby Atmos sound to you. And this really started in the cinema market space and has migrated down to the consumer space. In the consumer space, the delivery is using much more simple devices and methods to deliver this for the viewer, but it still delivers a really compelling experience. And typically, when we think of immersive audio or Dolby Atmos, we think of adding height channels, but there's the possibility for adding additional base layer channels that are the ear level speakers, like our front, left, and right, and surrounds. You can even add some on the floor if you want. So it's really to make make it much more three-dimensional. And Dolby Atmos can be done using channel-based immersive audio, object-based immersive, or a combination of both. To deliver Dolby Atmos to the viewer via broadcast or other methods, there's a few different ways to do it. Today, it would be done with a Dolby Digital Plus Jacque bitstream. This is how you can do that today. And coming in the near future is Dolby AC4. And I'll talk about what Dolby AC4 is in a little bit. Dolby Digital Plus will deliver Dolby Atmos using channel-based immersive today. Dolby AC4 will be able to support both channel-based and object-based audio going forward. So as I said, Dolby Atmos started in a cinema space, And looking at this image here, this would be a Dolby Atmos cinema, where you have all these speakers in the cinema, far more than what you would see today in a standard cinema. Each one of those speakers is individually processed and amplified. And in a projection booth, they have a, I don't know, 5 or 6 space rack unit that's a real-time renderer. It's a real-time mix engine. And it knows where the location of each of those speakers are when they calibrate the room. And it knows, what it does is it takes the soundtrack coming in and it mixes it properly through all those outputs so that the objects, the sound sources, appear to come from where the mixer wanted them to come from. Now, obviously, and Dolby Atmos in a cinema can support up to 128 different objects. Obviously, in the consumer space, we can't do that. But the cinema experience is fantastic. And if you've not experienced a movie in Dolby Atmos, I would highly recommend it. It's really quite the experience. And even better if you get to see it in an actual Dolby cinema, where they use their Dolby HDR projection, laser projectors, and they control the entire cinema environment. It's really quite spectacular. I've been able to see a few demos and feature films at their headquarters in San Francisco, and it's just been amazing. You can also find, in a consumer space, you can find Dolby Atmos in Blu-ray discs. You can also find it online and with OTT services such as Netflix, iTunes, Vudu, Amazon Prime Video. NTT Docomo is a mobile phone service in Japan. They were the first to offer streaming Dolby Atmos content to their customers. And there's music services now that are Dolby Atmos music services, such as Amazon Music HD, actually, and Tidal are a couple of the companies that offer that. Sony has a 3D audio service as well that's using actually a competing technology called MPEG-H, and very similar features and functionality to Dolby Atmos, but it's again a competitor to Dolby that's the Sony service is using. In TV, there have been Atmos broadcasts in TV, and they're starting to become a little bit more prevalent. Hopefully it will continue so after all this closed down releases. And it's in TV, admittedly, it's largely sports-based or post-produced content. But you can see that there's some here in the US with Comcast and DirecTV. And there have been some around the world, in China, in the Middle East, in France, Brazil, Poland. So there have been Dolby Atmos broadcasts globally. And it's really just the start of what we're seeing for Dolby broadcast. You'll typically see that 4K video, the UHD video, and HDR video will be, that's where you'll typically see an Atmos or an immersive audio track married up with that, much like 5.1 surround was married with HD video 20 years ago. There are some sporting leagues that broadcast Dolby Atmos on a regular basis. Here in the US, NBC Sports has been doing Notre Dame football home games the last 2 seasons in Dolby Atmos to DirecTV and Comcast. Part of their Olympic Games have been broadcast as in Dolby Atmos as well. From Rio were some test broadcasts, and Pyeongchang 2 years ago, some of the events were in Atmos. NBA TV with the Toronto Raptors games, home games have been broadcast out to their DirecTV customers. Over in the UK, Sky and BT Sport are broadcasting all of the English Premier League soccer matches in Atmos and have been for several years now. So they're doing multiple Atmos broadcasts a week. And also over here, NHRA is regularly broadcasting in Dolby Atmos. Coming soon. We thought it was going to be this year, but looks like it'll be next year. The next Olympic Games will be, all the events will be produced in 5.1+4 immersive audio by the host broadcaster OBS and made available to the rights holding broadcasters from various countries that want to use those feeds. So in some cases, like for here in the US, it will be Dolby Atmos, because again, Atmos is a specific brand name. And other parts of the world, it'll be in MPEG-H, but still delivering, 5.1+4 immersive audio. So hopefully next year that will happen, that the games will happen. So how do we get Atmos at home? What devices do we use? Well, there's plenty of devices. You may not think that would have Atmos in them. Newer TVs, AV receivers, media players like Roku's, Xbox, your video game systems, tablets, and even mobile phones. Remember, Dolby Atmos is an experience, it's not a specific technology. So listening over a pair of headphones connected to your tablet or your cell phone, you can still get that immersive audio experience by use of a virtualizer that emulates having speakers in the room. You don't necessarily need to go and hang speakers everywhere in your living room unless you want to. There are companies that make up-firing speakers that will reflect the height channels off the ceiling for you. Sound bars will be another option that'll be very popular, and some of these actually have sounded pretty good. I know Sennheiser makes one that's a rather pricey one. I think it's around $2,500 list price, but it sounds fantastic. I've heard some demos of it. It really sounded excellent. I was surprised at how good it was. Amazon is in the game now. Amazon Echo with the Echo Studio. This has come out in early December. They started shipping these. You can get Dolby Atmos music service with the Amazon HD Music, or again Tidal, or others. This will produce an Atmos image by using bouncing sound off the ceilings and the walls. You can get a subwoofer for this, and you can actually take two of these together if you want. Buy two, put them out as left and right, and they communicate with each other. They know they're both there reproducing an Atmos service, and they will kind of load share and figure out the best way to get you the most realistic Atmos sound in your room. Some of the common channel formats that we'll see in TV for Dolby Atmos, you get 5.1+2, that's kind of being deprecated. That would be your 5.1+2 front channel overheads. 5.1+4, so you have 4 channels, 4 height speakers, 2 in front and 2 in rear. This looks to be the format that's going to be the most common and most popular for broadcast and other consumer experiences. 7.1+2 or 7.1+4 won't be used as much, but certainly are valid. And 9.1+6. This is really a cinema format, and I think you'll see some content in this, but this is the stuff that's going to be post-produced and coming from Hollywood. So this will be your movies and titles like that, where they may not want to have to go and remix it into a 5.1+4. They can just distribute it as 9.1.6, and the consumer receivers will know what to do with that. So that's Dolby Atmos. Dolby AC4, this is their next generation audio codec, and it's much higher efficiency than Dolby Digital or Dolby Digital Plus. So if we look at a comparison chart here, you can see that it's less than half the data rate required for the equivalent quality of AC3 signal. So a stereo signal can be done at 64 kilobits per second as opposed to 192 kilobits per second for AC3, 5.1 at 144 compared to the same quality at 448. And if we start looking at complete mains and associated dialogue services, descriptive services for, say, visually impaired description, that would be 128 or 208 for a 5.1 program with the stereo AD service compared to 640. So you can really see the efficiency gains for the same level of quality that AC4 gives you. It also supports channel-based audio and immersive audio, again for, or object-based audio for immersive, but also for personalization. And here's another way where this gets interesting is how the personalization can happen. Not saying it has to happen this way, but it can. What we do today is we send out complete main mixes. So that mix, it contains all your dialogue, your music and effects, and all of that as a complete mix. With AC4, you can enable bitstream receiver mixing, so that the end consumer receiver actually takes over and handles a little bit of the final mix of the presentation that the user has desired. This is all configured upstream by the broadcaster or content creator, and so it allows the user some options within a range of parameters that have been set, configured by the broadcaster. So you could include different dialogues. They could be different languages, different team announcers, things like that. Your descriptive service, your VDS service could be in there, or other things. The venue PA you can add and let somebody put that in their mix if they want to hear more of that, or the ref mic in a sports broadcast. But really, this is a little different way of thinking and working to be able to put a little bit of trust in the consumer device to make sure that it's not going to give a bad end result. I think people are used to saying, this is what my mix sounds today. I know it sounds good. I trust it's going to sound good downstream. But putting a little bit of trust and faith into knowing what it's going to sound like downstream, giving the user options is going to, I think people will take a little bit of adjustment. One other advantage here, though, is if you stop and think about what we do with SAP or with VDS services today. You know, you may send out a 5.1 complete main mix in English, and your SAP in stereo or your VDS service in stereo or mono. With AC4, by sending out the individual stems, essentially, and letting the receiver do the mix, you can allow your English dialogue, your Spanish dialogue listeners to both get a 5.1 experience with the dialogue, and the same with the VDS service. So now your visually impaired viewers can get that 5.1 experience with the VDS signal. And you know, if you author the metadata correctly, they could take that VDS track and pan that around to the surrounds or somewhere else to leave the center channel dialogue clean and put the VDS where it's going to sound best for them in the room. And it gives them a much better experience. And using AC4, because of the gains in efficiency, you end up with a lower data rate overall. So it's kind of a win-win, can be a win-win for for everybody, for the broadcaster and the viewer. AC4 also includes dialogue enhancement for the hearing impaired as part of their technology, and it also includes Dolby's version of real-time loudness leveling algorithm. And much like Dolby E, it's video aware, so it aligns perfectly with video frames, so it can be routed and switched through your facility without really destroying any AC3 pack, or AC, in this case would be AC4 packets. But today with AC3, the audio frame size is 32 milliseconds, which never really lines up with any video format. So as it's getting routed and switched, there's always packets being trashed on either side of that switch. AC4 fits within the video frame and it switches in silence. So it's always guaranteed a clean switch there. So adoption of AC4 here in North America, it's part of the ATSC 3.0 standard as one of 2 codecs for final emission. It's been adopted by the North American Broadcasters Association. SCTE has adopted it as a next-gen audio codec, and it's included in Comcast's specification for next-gen service. So that's kind of the overview of AC4. I'm going to talk a little bit about ATSC 3. ATSC 3, I'm sure you've all heard about it. It's the next-gen TV standard for here in North America and South Korea, and who knows what other countries might hopefully adopt it. To the consumer, it's being marketed as next-gen TV. So if you see these logos on a TV product or a consumer device, you know that it's capable of receiving an ATSC 3 signal. And the ITU adopted ATSC 3 as a recommended digital broadcast standard back in January, which is kind of a big deal for ATSC 3, especially for international adoption. Not so much here in the States, but globally, it adds a lot of validity to the new standard. ATSC 3 merges the capabilities of traditional broadcast and the internet. So instead of being built using MPEG-2 transport streams, it's now all IP, largely using the dash format under the hood. So you can deliver hybrid delivery across across traditional broadcast, or information with additional information being sent across the internet, or OTT services being mixed in. There's home gateway receivers that will deliver content in your home to either tablets or TVs or mobile phones via Wi-Fi. Personalization services and interactive services and real-time ad targeting opportunities are much more with ATSC 3 than with ATSC 1. And it supports advanced emergency alerting. So the capability exists of waking sleeping devices, prioritized alerts, things like that. And it was designed really to be extensible and so that it can be easily updated as new technologies come out and are deployed. On the video side, it supports newer, more efficient video codecs and advanced features such as 4K, high dynamic range, higher frame rates. Watermarking is included in there. And then on the audio side, the audio can be up through mono, up through immersive. Whereas as an ATSC 1 only supported mono through 5.1, supports mono through 5.1. There are 2 codecs that are listed, adopted in ATSC 3 as the emission codec. It's Dolby AC4 and MPEG-H. Each region has to pick one that adopts ATSC 3, has to pick one of those 2 codecs. Here in North America, AC4 was adopted and South Korea chose MPEG-H. Both of these have the same, very similar feature set as far as the object-based audio, channel-based, and personalized audio, and immersive audio, and things of that nature. So it's kind of, you know, are you driving a Ford or are you driving a Chevy? Really is kind of what it works out to. But here in North America, Dolby AC4 is the chosen for audio format. One thing just to kind of keep in mind here is that Dolby Atmos is not the same as ATSC 3, and it's not the same as AC4. So Dolby Atmos is that immersive audio experience. Dolby AC4 is one of the technologies that can be used to deliver that experience plus a whole bunch of other audio features. And ATSC 3 is the next-gen TV format here in America. So ATSC3 signals will contain Dolby AC4 here. Whether or not that program is done in Dolby Atmos is going to be dependent on the content creator, really. You know, some programs it just doesn't make sense to do in Dolby Atmos, you know, like your local news broadcast. As far as deployment goes, it was publicly announced at ATSC. ATSC had a booth at CES, and they're putting up. There's groups that broadcasters want to launch in 60 markets here in the U.S. This year. Now, obviously, that's probably changed a little bit since everything is closed down a bit, but you know, that's still the target, and the markets that want to launch, it's just delayed a little bit, basically. Consumer manufacturer, TV manufacturers announced at CES, they introduced 20 different television sets, models that will support ATSC3 broadcasts that will be available this year. So for a at-will standard, it's really gaining a lot of ground and traction, and as far as adoption goes and excitement and market penetration. You know, too bad everything is closed down the last few months, but I expect it'll pick back up after everybody's able to come out of lockdown. Here's a list from ATSC of the first 60 markets that they want to launch with ATSC3 services. So you can see Nashville's in there. I believe Sacramento is, which is out by where I live, and I think Glenn is in that same area, along with other places where I've lived. So here's a list of the first 60 markets that you'll see ATSC3 services launch in. I'm going to talk a little bit about products we have that are tools for next generation audio. The first one is an up mixer, the UpMax ISC. And so this works with PCM audio only. It will accept a stereo signal, input signal, stereo plus a separate dialogue, 5.1 or 7.1 channel inputs, and it'll give you an immersive audio output, either 5.1 plus 4 or 7.1 plus 4 if you like. Or if you're just working in a 5.1 mode still, it can accept stereo or stereo plus dialogue inputs and upmix those to 5.1. So really it's ready for today's workflows and for the next gen workflows. This will also automatically detect native immersive or native 5.1 for 5.1 workflows and pass those signals through without processing, except to delay it by the same amount that our processing takes, so that lip sync is never varying as it's regardless of the mode the unit is running in. It has low enough latency where it can be inserted on an audio console, so that say a sports broadcast is maybe doing an immersive and a Dolby Atmos broadcast, but they're playing in highlight clips from legacy games or interviews from certain athletes and things like that, bumper music, all that can be upmixed to maintain a consistent sound field image for the viewer, so it doesn't go from a nice immersive mix, collapse back down to 5.1 or stereo, and then jumps back up as you finish that piece. So this provides a nice consistent output sound field regardless of the input channel format. This can also be used in the at the network center in your air chain. So again, for upmixing commercial content or interstitials to maintain that immersive sound field, so that as you switch from your sports program or other program coming in from the venue that's mixed in immersive, that you provide a consistent output sound field to your viewers at home to keep that sound field from jumping back and forth, which is really disconcerting. We have road tested this unit. NBC Sports has used prototypes of our UpMax ISC unit during the last 2 home football seasons at Notre Dame. And we were getting ready for the Olympics, and when unfortunately the plug was pulled for this year, but hopefully next year. Our next unit is the LA5291, and this is a Dolby Atmos encoder. This is using the Dolby Digital Plus Jacque bitstream to deliver, so this can be used today for the Atmos services that are on the air today. So it will encode PCM into Dolby Digital Plus Jacque. It will transcode Dolby ED2, which is Dolby's updated version of Dolby E. So ED2 supports up to 16 channel wide paths, compressed down to 2 stereo pairs, and that also includes Dolby Atmos metadata. So we can transcode ED2 directly into the Dolby Digital Plus Jacque bitstream with this unit, or we can take PCM in, encode that to Dolby ED2, or decode ED2 back to PCM. It's a 1 rack space unit. It supports SMPTE 2110-30 and 31 natively. It supports 3 gig SDI, 5 pairs of AES-3 I/O, so it can handle 5.1 plus 4 in and out with AES-3. There's option cards for SDI to bring it up to quad-link 3G, MADI, or there'll be one for a high-speed Ethernet to support 2110-20, so we can handle video delay there. Where this fits in the chain, this can fit in the remote truck. This can fit in transmission for the final encode. So this would work in a remote truck. This would sit with the DP590 authoring tool that creates the metadata, and that provides the 590 provides monitoring outputs as well. The metadata would get pushed to the 591 or 5291, and then the Dolby E or the Dolby Atmos bitstream gets sent from the remote truck. At the broadcast center, we can decode the Dolby E stream to PCM, route to PCM through your plant, insert advertisements, interstitials, studio shows, and then encode the final Dolby Digital Plus Jacque bitstream on the output. The next is LA5300, and this is our RealTime Dolby AC4 encoder and transcoder. And this can encode AC4 from PCM. We can decode AC3 or AC4, process it, and re-encode. There'll be an ATSC 1 option, so that will include our apto loudness control and a Dolby Digital encoder. This includes the UpMax algorithm that same's in the UpMax ISC standalone unit, watermarking, Nielsen or variance, bitstream analysis, and confidence decode. Same I/O options that are with the 5291 and actually the UpMax ISC. This is one of the processing blocks that'll go into 5300. You can see that we can decode AC3 or decode AC4 or accept PCM in. We can upmix it if desired. We can watermark with Nielsen or variance or both. AC4 encode and output. We provide bitstream analysis of each output and monitoring an output to a monitoring confidence decode that's built into the unit. We're looking to have up to 4 of those processing blocks running simultaneously in here with a single instance of the confidence decoder out. Here's just a simple block diagram showing how with ATSC 3, for first few years, this will have to be in a simulcast situation with your ATSC 1 service. It was a 5-year period, and I believe that clock started close to 2 years ago, maybe. So it'll be a kind of a 3-year simulcast 3-year minimum simulcast with ATSC 1 services. Again, the LA 5300 is really meant to get broadcasters on air quickly and easily with ATSC 3 audio. So this can sit in parallel with your AC3 encodes and either accept the PCM input, or it can sit on the output depending on where you're doing your AC3 encode, and it can take that AC3 output and transcode that into AC4.